Now very important thing, coming towards last two things briefly. There is another confusion which is normally and frequently used by the terrorists, by the extremist people, and they quote a verse of Holy Quran from Surah Tawbah, chapter 9, verse 5. And the same verse has created some confusion in some Western authors and writers. And they say this is Ayatul Sayf, the verse of sword. All those references, there were 70 to 120 verses banning taking up arms in Meccan period. When the permission of self-defense war came, self-defense and defense against your aggression and all these things, so the extremist people and the terrorists and some of the Western writers who are again confused and have no clarity on the subject, so they say that this verse, Surah At-Tawbah, verse 5, Ayatul Sayf, repealed all verses which were revealed for self-defense. And this was the verse just to kill the non-Muslims. And the terrorists of today, the Kharijite terrorists, they take wrong benefit and they exploit the meanings of this verse, take it out of the context, misinterpret it. So I want to clarify this misunderstanding from both sides, from the Muslim side and from the Western side. So now I am analyzing this verse of sword, Ayatul Sayf. This verse is verse number 5 in chapter 9. So we have to be very clear that we can't segregate or isolate a particular verse, taking out of the context and then interpreting it in a specific situation. No, we have to try to understand every single verse in the full context of Quran and in the historical background in which it was revealed. So this is a verse of chapter 9. This surah is known as Surah Bara'ah, Surah Tawbah and Surah Bara'ah. This is the chapter of renunciation, absolution. This was revealed in 9th year of Hijrah, 9th year of Holy Prophet's migration. That's why they say this was the last verses, and they have repealed all verses of peace and commandments of treaties and commandments of self-defense. It has become an absolute mandatory on the Muslims, Ma'azallah, astaghfirullah, saying just to kill the non. This is biggest silly thing to say. Terrorists are using this word. Biggest silly argument of the terrorist. This whole chapter was revealed in 9th year of migration. And is the first word is that the treaty of peace which was made in Hudaybiyah in 6th of Hijrah, when Holy Prophet went there with 1500 companions and he was not allowed to enter Makkah. And this situation ended up on a treaty of peace, a truce for 10 years. No war truce. So there was a specific condition, article in that treaty, written article, that neither Makkah nor Medina would attack on each other, nor their allies. And none of these two states, Makkah or Medina, would be allowed to help any ally in order to attack on Medina or attack on the allies of Medina. The same way, Medina would not be allowed to help their ally in order to attack any ally of Mecca. So this was the comprehensive treaty for 10 years, no war. What happened soon after this treaty took place 1 year before? There were Banu Bakr was a very big tribe among the allies of Meccans. And there was a big tribe, Banu Khuza'ah. He was allies of Medinans, Medina. So Banu Bakr attacked, breaching the treaty of peace. Banu Bakr attacked on Banu Khuza'ah and committed a grave act of killing, massacre, public massacre, mass killing in Mecca. And Meccans provided them the arms, the money, and they physically participated in this attack and killing. So the Meccans breached the treaty of peace by this attack and a collective act of killing of tribe Banu Khuza'ah. So the treaty of Hudaybiyah was breached, finished. This surah, chapter 9, was revealed in this context, historical context, to announce up till this time the breach of treaty was done by the Meccans. Now Quran is declaring annulment or renunciation, that treaty of peace which was done in Hudaybiyah. under which both sides were bound and responsible not to wage war against each other or against their allies. Now, bara'atum min Allah wa rasulih. God and His Prophet are announcing that that treaty has been renunciated, cancelled. Now there is no liability on both sides. This is an announcement of no liability is remaining after the breach has taken place by the Meccans. This was the whole surah. Next verse, important, is adhanum min Allah wa rasulih. Second verse. I will come to verse number 5. Adhanum min Allah wa rasulih. God commanded Holy Prophet, since the treaty has been breached, so there should be no warfare unless it should be properly publicly announced. So second verse and third verse, they include the public announcement of the breach of treaty. And the both parties have come out of the responsibility because of the Meccans' breach of treaty. Second is adhanum min Allah wa rasulih. So it is announced that the treaty is now no more in existence. The next thing which was done, that is verse number 4. And it is stated, verse number 4, that those who have breached the treaty, but still there are some tribes, they were allies of Meccans, they have not yet breached, their allies. So Quran says, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آهَدتُّم مِّنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ. They are allies, those allies who have not participated in the breach. So the treaty of peace would remain intact and applicable as far as those tribes are concerned, because they are peace-loving tribes. So Medina will honor that treaty for them. This was the third article. Then fourth article was, only those Meccans and allies who initiated the war against Medina and Medinan allies, since they particularly they have breached the treaty, so this renunciation and annulment of treaty would affect only their position. They will no more under guarantee because they have breached. Article number 4 and 5, there an ultimatum was given even after breach of trust. Okay, we will not fight against you in spite of your breach. 4-month ultimatum was given. فَإِذَنْ صَلَحَ الْأَشْهُرُ الْحُرُمُ. And in Quran it comes minha arba'atu hurum. 4 months were given to them as ultimatum. In the same way as UNO gives ultimatum to Iraq and many other countries, those who breach, abuse human rights and violate the treaties of peace. Ultimatum for 4 months was given. And stated, we are giving you the period of 4 months so that you may come back to peace again. You may restore the peace. You may revise your policy. If the treaty of peace is restored and policy of peace is again made, so these are 4 months are given for peacemaking, there will be no war. And even after 4 months, if you don't revise the policy and still you prepare attacking on us, then this was verse number 5, the verse of sword, this was revealed, then you are allowed to fight them as a defensive war. And this was again as a defensive war. And some people among the terrorists, they think, and some misunderstanding in the West, they think as if this verse repealed all verses which were communicated before. That is wrong. This verse did not repeal any verse. This verse just repealed the treaties which were already breached by the Meccans. This was the abrogator or repealer of the treaties between Medina and Mecca, and this was not repealer of the verses. All commandments of Quran remained the same for defensive war, entering into, and this is reported by Abdullah ibn Abbas says the same thing. Ad-Dahab bin Muzahim says the same thing. Ali bin Abi Talha says the same thing. That even they say this verse of sword elaborates that you cannot take the sword up against those people who have not breached the treaty of peace. So it was still for those who are peace-loving countries and those who are not going to attack you. You can't war any kind of, you can't fight them in your defense. And again, if there a war is going on, the same verse tells in verse number 6, if a war is going on and a state of war is restored, even during warfare, it is said, if any person non-combatant belonging to a state which you are fighting, which is fighting you, if that non-combatant comes to you, you are under an obligation to provide peace and security to him. Verse number 6, soon after, immediately after the verse, first verse, 5, said that you are under an obligation to provide safety and security to all non-combatants. So this is the Quranic explicit commandment to provide safety and security to all non-combatants. Verse number 12 again said, only fight them who commit aggression on you, who fight you, who impose war on you, except those people who stick to their agreement of peace. Don't fight them. This is verse number 12 of the same chapter. So this was an analysis of the whole subject of the verse of known as verse of sword. Just within 1 minute now, after exploiting all these concepts, the last point, which is being misused and wrongly interpreted by misusing and hijacking the concept of jihad and all these, what do they say? They declare the whole world as Darul Harb, abode of war. And they say we are under obligation to fight them. Irrespective Muslims, non-Muslims, America, US, they say it's abode of war. This is against Quran and Sunnah. The basic relationship between the Muslim countries and non-Muslim countries is not the relationship of war. It is the relationship of neutrality. Whole world, originally, on the basic original relationship with Muslim countries are neutral countries. These are known as abode of neutrality, Darul Hayad, relationship of al-Muhayada, neutrality. If they fight you, they become abode of war, directly military to military, not the society. If they enter into a treaty of peace, they become Darul Ahad, abode of treaty. If they establish a friendly relation with you and made an agreement, conciliation of stopping the war, they become Darul Sulh, abode of conciliation. And by this way, today UNO has taken place of all these Quranic commandments because of a multinational treaty through UNO. Every state, every single member of UNO has entered into a multinational, international treaty of peace. UNO has become the treaty maker, peacemaker for the whole world. So every single country, Muslim or non-Muslim, is bound according to the UN Charter. So all countries of the world are become Darul Ahad under UNO. And the injunctions of Quran and Sunnah and Islam of Darul Ahad are same as Darul Islam. And as ending remarks, all jurists, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Tahawi, Imam Sarakhsi, Imam Kasani, and Imam and Hanbali and Shafi'i and Maliki scholars, even Imam Shafi'i, they agreed on this idea that the word Darul Islam does not mean the land of Islam or abode of Islam. This is wrong translation. Darul Islam means abode of peace. In every country where the people living there are free, they have security of life, of property, of wealth, of religion, of culture, getting benefit, freedom everywhere, those countries are Darul Islam, means countries of peace. So particularly the Muslims of this world, neither any individual or organization has a right to declare any act as jihad or wage war. Or number two, the whole world under UNO, according to the injunctions of Quran and the Sunnah of Holy Prophet teaching, whole world has become Darul Ahad, similar to Darul Islam, or directly the abode of peace. So nobody has a right to fight against anyone unless UNO decides or the state decides as a defensive war matter between state to state, and these are the things, and or resistance, collective resistance against an oppression. So these are the basic concepts which were misunderstood, misinterpreted and hijacked by the terrorists. We need to be clear on these concepts. So I have tried to convey my message of peace and message of counter-terrorism and clarification of the concept of Islam and reclaiming the terms back from the terrorist back to Islam. I hope Almighty God will help us in understanding more and more each other. Thank you.